now that the redesign is done, it's time to release all of these files. We're going to use a tool called Product Release Engineer. This tool allows us to go through, check and make sure that the files have all the necessary data associated to them, any kind of property that we need to tweak. It will also allow us to create a bill of materials, add all of our part numbers, and then release all of the files for production. So if I go over to my BOM tab that I have set up for me, here I have the engineering release app. This entire bill of material structure, if I expand it out, it doesn't matter if this assembly was created in SolidWorks or the X apps, we can see the entire assembly structure. One of the nice things that we can do is we can edit and modify the custom file properties right here from the engineering release app. So I can add a new custom file property, or I can go ahead and add a material just to show you how that looks. Let's take a look at, let's say, this gear, for example. I'll go into the information. These are all of the file properties for it. You see I have a little pencil icon, and all of this is editable. I can change the name of it if I want. I can add a revision comment. We're not making a new revision. Maybe I wanted to add a model number. So I'll add a model number to that. And you can see every kind of property that we have that we would want is up here. You can also, add attachments to specific files if you want. Now they're kind of be linked to this file. One of the other things you might want to do is add a material to this. So if I wanted to add a core material, let's say, I don't know what it would actually be made out of, but we'll just do, let's say, stainless steel as an example. So I'll select one, click OK. You see that gets brought into my gear. If I save this out and then close this, you can see that that core material does get applied. Any type of description, it's all in here. I can go through and make changes to any of them. Now that the material is applied, we need to start looking at our item numbers, and that's this first column, or I guess second column on the left. We have a particular kind of item numbering scheme at our company, and we can adhere to that within our bill of materials. So let's say any components that don't have an item number, I can just select it where it says none. So let's do this right knife sleeve as an example, just so that I can make some changes to it. So I can set up that part number, and you see it assigns a unique identifier. And these kind of, the way that this is set up, you can customize this so you can get it to fit whatever kind of numbering scheme, part numbering scheme you're using at your specific company. In our case, we just have PN dash and then just a counter essentially, so that each component has its own unique identifier. And I could do that for all of these components. So it's nice that I can go in and change these things, even if I wasn't the one that created all these different components. As the project manager, I can control all the item numbers from here. When we're creating things like bill of materials, it can kind of be a pain when dealing with things that aren't really in the model. As an example, let's say in order to assemble this, we needed some adhesive. It doesn't really make sense for me to model that, but right here from within the app, if I go my little plus icon, I can say that I want to add a new engineering item. There we go. You see it creates this physical product right now. Obviously, that's just kind of like the default information, but I can come in here and I can go back to its properties. I can change the title of it. Let's say this is adhesive. I can add a description of kind of what type of adhesives that is. So adhesive, I don't know. Let's say we had a part number for that. And again, go through, add a material, any type of property that you'd be interested in. You can click on save. Just like before, we can assign it an enterprise item number. Select that and set it. And so you see, it's really easy to be able to add these type of things that are kind of a pain when it comes to bill of materials because we don't have a model for them. And a lot of the time with these like automated bill of materials, these things that we do need in the real world but don't get modeled are just really easy to bring in. Okay, so last thing we need to do, I just want to look over the properties for the top level of this. So let me go into the information. So just like how we could treat any of the specific components, we can treat the parent assembly. Let's say this has its own model number. Click save. Okay, now once I am done with all of this, let's say everything is good to go. I've gone through, applied all the properties that I wanted, and this is good to be released. If I look at my components, you probably notice that they're all in different maturity states along their life cycle. If I wanted to, individually, I can set them to a release state so that nobody can go back in and accidentally make changes to it as we're getting this completed. So let's say this motor, for example, we wanted to release it. It's now in a released and kind of locked state. But if I know that my entire assembly is good to go, I can go to the top level maturity state, which is up here, select the maturity state and say, make sure I include all structural objects, meaning all of the different child components that are in here. And then I'll just click release. Let it do its thing and apply that to all the different components that I have under here. So it went through. So regardless of whether that component was already released, whether it was frozen, whether it was still in work, I'm able to kind of release them all at the same time. Now, once this is good to go, another thing is nice is that this allows me to export this bill of materials as a CSV, which can be used in Excel. The way to do that is if I go this little drop down at the very bottom, I have an option to export. I'll say that I want to include all of them. Let's change the name of that file to carving knife bomb. I'll hit export. And since this is just a browser, it's just going to show up in my downloads, and I can save it to my computer. I'll save it in this folder. See, it shows up down here as downloaded.